Welcome to the summit, The Art of Living. And I have the pleasure to introduce you to Mark Nepo. Welcome, Mark.
Oh, it's great to be with you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and thank you for being here. It's very precious. And you are a poet and an author and a storyteller and also a spiritual advisor. And I've attended some of your workshops when you were in Seattle a few years ago, and it's absolutely wonderful. And so the interview today will be about life and the art of living. And your books that you have many books, but the books today will be the Book of Awakening, the 20th edition. If you can show that, I know you
Yeah,
have.
sure. This 20th edition has been out this year, which is hard to believe. It's 20 years. And the other book is the Book of Soul, which is my most recent book, which came out last year. And so, yeah, I'm very grateful. Never take any of them for granted. It's always amazing to have any of them come out.
Yeah, and they're beautiful books. You write absolutely beautiful books. So I'm glad that you keep doing it. So,
Thank you.
and they point to what you write about, and what you're all about is the essence of life, like what matters, right? And
Yeah.
like the Book of Soul, you have like 52 different matters in life, you could say, that you can kind of dive deep into and contemplate. And so
Yes, and I offer them like it's not a sequence, it's not a ladder where we go from 1 to 52. I offer like throwing seeds out. You just don't know which ones will be watered and will break ground and turn into flowers and others won't. So every reader might be touched by something different. So my job is to offer as many ways as possible, never knowing what will work for you might be different than for me.
yeah, yeah, and that's what I also notice is like you go into all the whole spectrum of life, everything. So something resonates with someone and not so much another person, because maybe they don't have those kind of experiences, or but maybe
Yeah.
sow some seeds for opening up to those kind of experiences.
Well, and you know from my writing that I'm a long-term cancer survivor, over 30 years, and in my 30s, almost dying from cancer, really turned me inside out and upside down, and I was landed into a heart-centered way of being in the world, and ever since then, I've been a student of all paths. I was raised Jewish, and I feel tied to the Jewish tradition, but I practice all different traditions, and I'm devoted to all of them because I feel that being fully alive depends on our being authentic in the practice of being human. We can't skip over anything, even though things can be difficult. I think life has been made just difficult enough that we need each other to ensure the journey of love. And so relationship is the lifeblood of humanity, of being as alive as possible. And often I need to say, help me. And often you need to say, well, help me.
Yeah, so it's like the relationships, their interconnectedness in all of life. That is the essence, because when you're separate and small, and you don't feel good. But when you're sharing and celebrating together, you could say celebrating life together in all its facets, then it's like something happens in that. Love is
Well,
flourishing.
a lot, it's a lot like, a net, like a fishing net. If you put a weight in the net, it will, in the place where it is, it'll sink, but the whole net where it's all knotted in so many places will distribute the weight. And in that way, humanity is a net of hearts. You know, I could be hurting, and when you care for me, and then someone you know who maybe doesn't know me, but because they care for you, they support you in caring for me, the net of hearts distributes the suffering. And then tomorrow, somebody else will be in the center, and I will be called or pulled to help them. And so, you know, you can't, this isn't, this connection between everything isn't something you can prove. It's only something you can feel. You know, the great philosopher Martin Buber said, the world is incomprehensible, but it is embraceable. But it is embraceable. And when we take the courage to hold and reach out in good times and in difficult times, then we feel the tug of being alive. We feel the connection with everything that distributes the weight of the suffering.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's like we almost lose ourselves in that process too, or the little self is it's like that disappearance, or you could say you're a service to the world, and in being service to everyone, you lose that grasping onto what's in it for me.
Well, I think that, you know, there are many ways that we come to being authentic. You know, one is by having the courage to face what is ours to face, to not avoid, even though sometimes, you know, we want to avoid it. It's painful, it's difficult, but to not avoid what's in our path, because what's in the way is the way. That's how we grow. And at other times, our compassion. When I open my heart to you, um, I am pulled out of my small self to briefly feel some of what you're feeling. And that's how we grow. That's how we grow larger than just ourselves. You know, one of the struggles now in our world is many people are are fearful when they feel pulled to others, and so they pull back and feel more isolated, and their fear governs them. And we all take turns in this. It's not like there's people who are open and people who are closed. Everybody has the capacity to be awake and loving and compassionate. And, you know, we take turns. You know, one of my small poems goes, you know, those who wake are the students, those who stay awake are the teachers, how we take turns.
Mm, yeah, yeah, that's because it's like sometimes it also feels like, oh yeah, I'm really, I really feel alive. I'm living life. I embrace everything, and it feels like a flow almost. And then other times it just feels like you're um, kind of secluded, or it's life feels off in some way, or and also when we go through hard times and challenges, it's even more so, right? So it's hard to always stay open.
Well, I think one of the challenges for all of us is when we're closed, when things are difficult, is to remember that that's not how it always is. You know, the sun is always shining, and there are clouds, and when the clouds are in the way, we don't see the sun. And that's real. We feel life under the cloud, but the sun is still there. And it's not, so it's both. We have to acknowledge when things are difficult or gray, the difficulty, and yet uh, that sun is always there. That spirit is always there. That connection is always there. You know, a wonderful story from my grandmother, who was a Russian immigrant, and she lived to be 94. And you know, she died many years ago when I was in my 30s, right around the time I was going through my cancer journey. But I would go to visit her, and she was in a hospital setting. Before they had assisted living, she was kind of informally spending her last year or more in this hospital setting. So she had just a little room with one window, and I went to visit her. I lived, several hours away, but I came in one day, a beautiful day, and I saw her before she saw me, and she looked sad. She looked glum, and I said, "Oh, hi, Grandma. What's the matter? Is everything okay?" And she had a very thick Russian accent, and she said, "Oh, it's a gray day." And it was a beautiful day, and I thought, gee, my parents were telling me, well, maybe she's not so lucid. And then I looked around, and her one window had never been cleaned.
Okay.
So it was a gray day for her. And I looked, I said, Grandma, the window is dirty. We'll get it cleaned, but it's a beautiful day. Let me take you out in the courtyard. And before she got off the edge of her bed, 93 years old, she looked at the window, she looked at me, and she chuckled and she said, "Got a dirty eye, see a dirty world."
Yeah. Yeah. So
Got
it's a lot of,
dirty And I count that as immigrant wisdom that has saved me many times through there will be gray days, but before we give so much over to facing a gray day, let's make sure that the window of our eye and mind and heart are clean and that we are really giving our effort to something that is real.
yeah. Yeah. And there's actually a quote I wrote down here from your book. It's when we can shed all the expectations and judgments we weave, feeling the bareness of things is magically enough. And that it is a lot like, what do we add to the world that we don't need to add, right?
Well, this is part of the process, the art. So this is part of the process of being human, is that like the window, not because life is terrible or evil, but it's nature. The window collects dirt after a while, and then we have to clean it. Well, the same thing happens with the window of our eyes and the window of our heart and the window of our mind. And so part of the art of living is by what practices do we each clean the windows that are ours so there's nothing between us and life. And all the traditions have different tools for doing this, but we have to personalize and say, oh, this one works for me. Oh, that one really doesn't, so that we fill our own toolbox. But everyone has to, over time, um, has to clean the windows of your eye, ears, heart, mind, and this is a great part of the art of living. And the arts help us do that.
Mm, yeah. Yeah. And you're a poet, so it helps you.
Yeah. Oh, very much so. Very much so. It's what keeps me alive and vital.
Yeah.
And this process of being a poet is not restricted to just people who are practicing poets, because poetry is really, for me, the unexpected utterance of the soul, whether you write it down or not. So everyone in their heart is a poet.
Yeah. Yeah. Because it's even beyond the words what we are. Uh, you could say, yeah, the art of living. Life happens even without words, right? Without thoughts. Life happens. Life is.
Absolutely. And then, we need to express ourselves to process what it is to be alive.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like we add meaning to life, or we make meaning out of life, purpose and meaning. Um, which is fine, because I guess that's what humans do. That's what we do. We are creative, and we yeah, we make meaning out of things, and animals wouldn't do that, right? As far as I know. So it's just like a human being thing to make meaning and be creative, and that's fine. That's our humanness that you talked about earlier. Yeah.
Well, yes, I think that, animals have a certain precious kind of consciousness. My dog is,
Yeah.
and her name is Zuzu. And but they animals wonderfully have. They're so in the present because their consciousness is so direct. And we have many more gifts and facets, but so we can retain more at a certain level than animals. But what comes with that for human beings is we also turn that into fear and expectation. Animals don't have that. They can be afraid in the moment, but they don't think about being afraid of something ahead of time like we do. But they also can't retain wisdom over time. So, every creature has something special and unique to share. But in the Native American tradition, I have a friend who is a Native American elder, and so many stories are about animals as teachers. And I asked him one time, why is that? That there's and he said it's because the Great Spirit, their name for God, the Great Spirit recognized that uh, animals are the only ones that don't forget their original instructions,
Mm. Aha. Yeah. And you can
which is to
tell.
be, yeah, which is to be present, to hold nothing back.
Yeah.
And we need to relearn that over and over again.
Yeah, because animals are just what they are. And whereas we humans, we make believe, or it's like we construct this whole character. We can just be what we are in the moment, every moment, right?
Yes. So, in there was a female mystic from the Middle Ages in Germany. Her name was Mechthild, and she had this beautiful saying. She said that a bird doesn't fall from the sky, and a fish doesn't drown in water. Each creature must find their God-given nature. And so it's easy for a fish and a bird because they never, it's very clear what their God-given element is, the water and the air. But for human beings, we're blessed to have, like facets to a prism. We have so many gifts and so many characteristics and so many capabilities that the first kind of task in the art of living is to what is our God-given element? Where is it that our soul can breathe most naturally and easily? That's the environment in which we need to make a home. Not maybe a physical home, but more than a physical home, a heart home where we can grow and thrive and then swim like the fish in the water and fly like the bird in the air.
Yeah. And it kind of sounds like following your heart. Like, what is it you love to do? Where do you love to be? Who do you love to be with? Is it like that?
Yes, I think that, the word trust literally means follow your heart. And so um, when we follow our heart, we are led back to what matters. And so like when I am faced with difficulty, I've come to ask a basic question as a kind of as a barometer all the time, and that is what's before me heartening or disheartening? If it's heartening, even if it's difficult, then I will lean into it. But if it's disheartening, why am I doing it? And so sometimes things seem very tangled and confused and difficult, and I try to just drop it, just come back to that basic question. Is this heartening or is it disheartening? And then, I'll give my effort. But if it's disheartening, it feels like it's a wrong turn.
Yeah. Yeah. So you go a lot with what you feel, then like what feels right, what seems true to you in your
Yeah,
decisions.
following what feels true. And, we certainly can learn from others, but no one can tell you what feels true for you or what feels true for me. That's why presence is so important. Through being present, I can restore, excuse me, I can restore my direct experience of life. See, clean that window and see, oh, it is a sunny day or it's a cloudy day, but to see what it really is.
Yeah. Yeah, that's beautiful. And that's very simple. It's just like, okay, it's like listening to yourself and like, the silence, the stillness that we hear about. It's a lot about that. What is it that you are, and rest in that or listen to that.
Well, all the wisdom traditions have some kind of meditation practice, and the aim of all these practices, as I understand it, is, it's like if you're at a lake, and the lake, there's a breeze and it's ripples and there's waves or it's choppy, but every once in a while it goes still and you can see through to the bottom. That's
Mm.
that's what all the meditation practices are trying to help us do, is to still everything long enough that we can see through to the bottom, which never goes away. And then it doesn't stay that way, not because we're, stupid or lazy or no, because that's the lake doesn't stay that way. Once in a while it goes clear, but this is the role of faith, real faith, not faith in a doctrine or an idea or a religious, set of rules, but faith that when the clouds are there, the sun is still behind it. And when the water is churned up, the bottom is still there for when it goes clear. I may not be able to see it right now, but it hasn't gone anywhere. And so, how do I feel the truth that I can't see it, but also the faith that I know it's still there?
Yeah. And that's the thing, it's a natural thing to know because we are made of that, right? It's like it's yeah. And yet we get so distracted by all the busyness of life and what we are told
Yeah,
and taught. And yeah.
because we're human. That is part of being human. Medieval mystics, when asked how they practiced their faith, they said by falling down and getting up. And I love that because it's so true and so human. And that's what we have to do is the window gets dirty, we clean it. We fall down, we get up. I'm confused and I can't see, but I know I will see.
Mm, yeah. Oh wow! Thank you so much, Mark. It's so beautiful. It's I can really tell. Also, you talk from experience, and it's a lived. Your words are lived, and that's beautiful. So,
Well, thank you. Thank you so much. It's a joy to be with you and thank you for the work you're doing.
yeah, and your website. How can people get in touch with
Oh
you?
yeah, so thank you. We got so talking. So I am offering. I will start teaching in person again in the fall, and people can find where I'll be at marknepo.com. But I am offering sooner two online teaching events. In August 28th, I'm teaching a master class that is 5 days in a row, uh, on the life of expression and the radiance in all things, the gift of deepening. And I'm also in September, on September 11th, giving a free reading as service to whoever wants to be part of it anywhere from around the world. But both of those, people can find out about it and register at live.marknepo.com.
Yeah, great. That's beautiful that you offer that, and people can talk to you and see you and dive in with you.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Mark. I appreciate your time and for being here at the summit. So thank you.
You are very welcome. You're very welcome. Many blessings.
Mhm.